Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about a force that has shaped literally all of human history. And no, it's not what you're thinking. It's got nothing to do with making things pretty. It's about survival. We're talking about design.
So when I say the word design, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, right, it's probably something like fashion or cool logos or maybe making a room look nice. But what if I told you that's just the tip of the iceberg, not even close to the real story?
Yeah, on one side, you've got that common view. Design is decoration. It's about aesthetics, making things look good. But the real story, the one that's literally woven into our DNA, is that design is all about solving problems. It's about survival. It's that act of intentional creation that, well, kept us from going extinct. All right, so let's really get into this definition. See, design isn't some newfangled thing that happens in a fancy studio, not at all. It's actually a fundamental, almost instinctive human skill. You could even call it our secret weapon, an evolutionary advantage that allowed us, our species, to not just survive, but to totally thrive on this planet. I mean, just think about it for a second. Put yourself in the shoes of our earliest ancestors. Every single day was just a series of life or death problems. How do I stay warm tonight? How do I find food and then stop something else from stealing it? How do I warn the others that there's a predator nearby? Every single one of those questions, that was a design brief. And survival, well, that depended entirely on coming up with a good solution. Okay, so how did that instinct actually turn into stuff, into action? Let's take a look at the very first toolkit our ancestors designed. And wow, what a journey it is. We're talking millions of years here. It all kicks off with the very first stone tools, right? Not just any rock, but one that was intentionally shaped to solve the problem of hunting or cutting. From there, it evolves. We see primitive shelters, specifically designed for a certain climate or threat. And believe it or not, that exact same impulse, that same spark of creation, is what carries us all the way forward to the printing press and yeah, even to the digital revolution we're living in now. It's all one long, continuous story of humans solving problems. This way of thinking completely reframes things we just take for granted. Take fire, for example. We always say we discovered fire, but that's not the whole picture. We designed its use. We figured out how to control it, how to harness this incredibly dangerous force of nature and turn it into a tool for warmth, for light, and maybe most importantly, a central hub for community and social life. And then, of course, you have the wheel. What a revolutionary piece of design. It wasn't just about rolling things from point A to point B. It was a total game changer in understanding mechanical advantage. It changed, well, everything. Construction, pottery, warfare. It fundamentally reshaped our ability to manipulate the world around us. And you see this same pattern play out again and again. Fast forward to the printing press. Before Gutenberg, knowledge was locked up, right? It was scarce, controlled by a tiny elite. His press was a design to democratize information. And what did it do? It sparked revolutions in science, in politics, in religion, all because someone designed a better, faster way to share ideas. So, for thousands and thousands of years, design was this intuitive thing, right? A hands-on craft you learned from the generation before you. But then, something happened. A massive, world-changing event created a problem so huge, so complex, that our old, intuitive ways just couldn't handle it anymore. Instinct wasn't enough. We needed a system. And that event, of course, was the Industrial Revolution. All of a sudden, the whole game changed. We weren't just a craftsman making one chair for one specific person, no. Now we had to make thousands of chairs for millions of people. And that presents a totally new kind of design problem. How in the world do you create things for a mass audience in a way that's structured, repeatable, and actually works? Now, this shift didn't happen overnight. It came in stages. First, you had individual craftsmen. Then you see these organized guilds pop up. But the real turning point, the absolute game changer, was the Bauhaus School in Germany. They came up with this totally revolutionary way of teaching that finally formalized design for the new industrial age. The guy who founded it, Walter Gropius, had this radical idea. He basically said, hey, this separation we've created between the artist over here and the craftsman over there, it's totally artificial. It's nonsense. His big idea was to bring it all back together, to merge art, craft, and all this new industrial technology into one unified field, one discipline.
The goal? To create things for the modern world that were both incredibly functional and truly beautiful. So once design got this system, it created a new kind of person. We started to see designers who weren't just making things, they were thinkers, they were philosophers, and they would go on to shape the very world we live in.
But long before the Bauhaus was even a dream, you had absolute pioneers like Leonardo da Vinci. You could honestly call him the original design thinker. This guy saw zero difference between art and engineering. For him, it was all the same. He'd use science and observation to solve problems and then sketch out his ideas in those amazing notebooks. He was basically living the Bauhaus philosophy like 400 years ahead of schedule. Incredible. So as design grew up as a field, you started to see different camps form, different philosophies about the right way to do it. On one side, you had the Bauhaus masters like Mies van der Rohe, with his famous motto, less is more, all about minimalism, industrial materials, super stark and clean. But then on the other hand, you had people like Charles and Ray Eames. Their whole vibe was much more playful, much more human-centered. They were obsessed with experimenting with new materials to solve real, everyday problems for regular people.
Okay, so we've gone on this huge historical journey. But what does any of this have to do with you, right now, today? Well, here's the thing. This evolutionary superpower we've been talking about, it's not just some story from the past, and it's not a special skill that only famous designers have. It's inside every single one of us.
You see, that ancient instinct for survival we talked about, that basic human drive to see a problem, dream up a solution, and then actually build it, we just gave it a fancy modern name. We call it design thinking. And yeah, it's used by all the big, innovative companies today. But at its heart, it's nothing new. It's just a new label for our oldest, most powerful human skill. So here is the most important takeaway of all this. Design is not something that other people do. It's everywhere. It shapes your entire world, from the apps on your phone to the way your city is laid out. And honestly, it's probably the best tool we've got for tackling the huge challenges we face, like climate change. But most importantly, that ability, the one to see what's broken and figure out how to fix it, that is an inherent part of being human. It's your birthright. Once you understand this history, it's incredibly empowering. Suddenly, you stop seeing the world as this fixed, unchangeable thing. You start to see it for what it is, a massive collection of design choices. Choices that other people made a long time ago to solve the problems they were facing. And here's the kicker. If something was designed once, it can always be redesigned. So the real question I want to leave you with is, what will you redesign?